I sat at my childhood dining table, watching my mother shower my brother Derek with praise for his insurance promotion, while completely ignoring me, just like she had for 15 years. When Derek smugly bragged about his latest company achievement, I quietly mentioned I had recently sold my business. Derek burst into laughter, shaking his head with that familiar condescending smirk. That worthless little startup of yours. Come on, Brian. How much could it possibly be worth? The room fell silent as I met his mocking gaze, and calmly replied, $160 million. Derek's jaw dropped open. Mom turned completely pale. The story of how my family became strangers begins on a rainy October evening in 2008. I was 17, staying late at Riverside High School for our computer programming club meeting. We were working on a project to create a student database system, and I was completely absorbed in debugging code when I noticed the time. 9:30. Dad was supposed to pick me up at 9. I called his cell phone, hearing the exhaustion in his voice. Sorry, kiddo. Lost track of time at the hardware store. Be there in 10 minutes. Tom Williams. My father owned a small construction supply business that demanded 16-hour days. He was always tired, always stressed, but never too busy to support my interests. While my older brother Derek excelled at sports and socializing, I found my passion in computers and programming. Dad encouraged this, even though he barely understood what I was doing. That night, Dad was rushing to get to me. I later learned he was speeding down Maple Street, worried about keeping me waiting in the empty school parking lot. A drunk driver ran the red light at the intersection of Maple and 3rd Avenue. The impact killed my father instantly. I survived with minor cuts and bruises. Dad did not. The funeral was a blur of casseroles, condolences, and my mother Susan's hollow stare. She was 53, then a woman who had built her entire life around being Tom Williams's wife and Derek's proud mother. My father's death shattered something fundamental in her, but what emerged from the wreckage was worse than grief. It was blame. Derek, 22, and fresh from college, naturally stepped into the role of family protector. He handled the funeral arrangements, managed the insurance paperwork, and became the son my mother could depend on. Meanwhile, I became the son whose late-night activities had put Dad on the road during a thunderstorm. The change was gradual but unmistakable. Mom stopped asking about my day. She would remember Derek's favorite meals, but forget mine. When I won first place in the state computer science competition 3 months after Dad's funeral, she nodded absently and changed the subject to Derek's new job at Midwest Insurance Group. Mrs. Patterson, our neighbor, noticed the shift. One afternoon, she approached me while I was mowing our lawn. Your mother's hurting, Brian. Grief makes people do strange things sometimes. I wanted to believe her that this coldness was temporary, a phase that would pass once Mom healed. But it did not pass. By my 18th birthday, the pattern was cemented. Derek was the golden child who could do no wrong, the successful son who reminded Mom of better times. I was the painful reminder of the worst night of her life. Family dinners became exercises in exclusion. Mom would enthusiastically discuss Derek's work achievements, his dating life, his plans for the future. When I tried to contribute to conversations, she would offer one-word responses or simply ignore me entirely. Derek, for his part, seemed to enjoy his elevated status. He would make subtle digs about my weird computer obsession and suggest I needed to get out more and be more normal. When I showed interest in starting my own business, he would laugh and tell Mom not to worry about my crazy schemes. The breaking point came during my senior year. I had been accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship for computer science. I was excited to share the news, thinking surely this achievement would earn some recognition. I waited for the perfect moment during Sunday dinner, then announced my acceptance. Derek immediately jumped in. That's great, little brother. Though I heard the computer science program there is pretty easy. Not like the business courses I took. Mom nodded and began clearing plates, acting as if I had not spoken at all. That night, I went to Dad's old office in the basement. Among his papers, I found something that made my chest tighten. A folder labeled Brian's College Fund contained bank statements showing my father had been setting aside money for my education since I was born. There was almost $30,000 saved. I showed the folder to Mom the next morning. Her reaction was not surprise, but annoyance. "Your father had many unrealistic ideas," she said coldly. "That money needs to go toward keeping this house." The college fund disappeared into general household expenses. I realized then that my mother was not going to heal from her grief in a way that included me. I was not going to earn my way back into her love through achievements or good behavior. In her mind, I was permanently connected to the worst tragedy of her life. So I made a decision that would define the next decade of my life. I would stop trying to prove myself to people who refused to see my worth. Instead, I would build something so undeniably successful that their opinion would become irrelevant. I graduated high school and enrolled in community college working nights at a computer repair shop to pay tuition. Derek bought a new car with his insurance job signing bonus. Mom bragged to neighbors about Derek's success while never mentioning my existence. Mrs. Patterson continued to check on me occasionally. "Your mother loves you, Brian. She just does not know how to show it anymore." I appreciated her kindness, but I had stopped believing in my mother's hidden love. Some damage cannot be repaired with good intentions. When I moved into a tiny apartment near campus at 19, neither Mom nor Derek helped me pack. I carried my possessions in garbage bags and cardboard boxes, loading them into my rusted Honda Civic. As I drove away from the house where I grew up, I made a promise to myself. I would become successful enough that their rejection would stop hurting. I would build something so impressive that even they would have to acknowledge it. And if they did not, well, I would create a new family from the people who actually valued what I had to offer. I had no idea how completely that promise would transform my life. Community college was a revelation. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who judged me on my abilities rather than my family history. My programming instructor, Professor Martinez, recognized my talent immediately and encouraged me to think beyond traditional employment. "You have an intuitive understanding of code that cannot be taught," he told me, after I completed a complex database project in half the expected time. "Have you considered starting your own consulting business?" The idea terrified and excited me equally. I was 20, working 3 part-time jobs to afford my tiny studio apartment and ramen noodle dinners. Starting a business seemed impossible, yet Professor Martinez's confidence planted a seed. I began taking on freelance computer repair jobs, advertising through flyers posted at local coffee shops and community bulletin boards. My first official client was Marcus Thompson, who owned a small chain of family restaurants called Thompson's Table. His point-of-sale system had crashed, taking weeks of sales data with it. "Can you fix this mess?" Marcus asked desperately when I arrived at his flagship location. His usual tech support company wanted $3,000 and 2 weeks to rebuild the system. I studied the problem for 6 hours and realized the data was not lost, just corrupted in a way that could be repaired with the right approach. I worked for 18 straight hours, surviving on coffee and Marcus's leftover pizza, and recovered every piece of data. More importantly, I created a backup system that would prevent future disasters. "How much do I owe you?" Marcus asked when I finished. I had planned to charge $300, but the complexity of the work and the value I had provided made me bold. $800. Marcus wrote the check immediately. "You just saved my business. If you ever start a real company, call me first." That check represented more money than I had ever earned in a single job. I deposited it and used half to buy better computer equipment, setting up a proper workspace in my apartment. I registered my business name with the state Williams Tech Solutions. The irony of using my father's name was not lost on me. Tom Williams had taught me the value of honest work and treating customers fairly. I wanted to honor that legacy, even if the rest of my family had forgotten what he stood for. Word spread quickly in our small city. I gained clients through referrals, building a reputation for solving problems other technicians could not handle. By my 21st birthday, I was earning enough to quit my part-time jobs and focus entirely on the business. Derek, meanwhile, had been promoted to senior claims adjuster at his insurance company. At family gatherings, he would regale everyone with stories of his professional importance and growing salary. When relatives asked about me, Derek would dismiss my work as computer hobby stuff that was not a real career. Mom never asked about my business directly, but I overheard her telling neighbors that I was still figuring things out, while Derek was really making something of himself. The contrast was clear and intentional. The breakthrough came in late 2013. Marcus Thompson wanted to expand his restaurant chain, but needed a comprehensive management system to handle inventory scheduling, payroll, and customer data across multiple locations. Existing software solutions were too expensive or too complicated for his needs. "Can you build something custom?" he asked during a meeting at his newest restaurant. I spent 3 weeks designing a system from scratch, creating software that integrated every aspect of restaurant management into a user-friendly interface. The program could track ingredient costs, predict busy periods based on historical data, optimize staff scheduling, and generate detailed financial reports. When I demonstrated the finished product, Marcus was amazed. "This is exactly what I needed. How much?" My heart pounded as I quoted $50,000. It was more money than I had ever requested, but the system would save Marcus hundreds of thousands in operational costs over time. "Deal," Marcus said without hesitation. "And I want exclusive rights to recommend this to other restaurant owners." The $50,000 contract transformed my life overnight. I moved to a better apartment, bought reliable transportation, and began planning to expand Williams Tech Solutions into a legitimate company. I was excited to share this success with my family at Christmas dinner 2014. Surely, a $50,000 contract would prove I was building something real and valuable. Derek was announcing his engagement to Sarah Mitchell when I arrived at Mom's house. The living room was decorated with congratulations cards and champagne glasses. Derek was holding court describing his proposal and their wedding plans. "Congratulations," I said genuinely. Despite everything, Derek was still my brother, and I wanted him to be happy. "Thanks, little brother. Sarah's been so supportive of my career growth. It's nice to have someone who understands professional success." His emphasis on the word professional was pointed. During dinner, Derek dominated the conversation with details about his promotion to regional supervisor and the salary increase that came with it. Mom hung on every word, asking follow-up questions and expressing pride in his achievements. I waited for a natural break in the conversation, then mentioned my recent contract. "I landed a major client this year. $50,000 for a custom software project." Derek paused mid-bite, then laughed dismissively. "That's nice, Brian. Beginner's luck, probably. Though 50 grand is not exactly life-changing money." He turned to Sarah. "Remember when I got that signing bonus last year? Same amount, but from a real company with benefits and security." Mom nodded approvingly. Derek's always been practical about money and career planning. Stability is so important. Sarah, to her credit, tried to show some interest. "What kind of software did you create, Brian?" Before I could answer, Derek jumped in again. "Restaurant management stuff. Pretty basic programming, really. Anyone with a computer science class could probably do it. The real skill is in sustained professional growth, which requires working within established corporate structures." The dismissal stung, but what hurt more was Mom's complete indifference. She had not asked a single question about my work or shown any curiosity about what I had accomplished. Derek's engagement dominated the entire evening, as if my $50,000 success was completely meaningless. I left that dinner with a new understanding. No amount of small victories would change their perspective. Derek would always find ways to minimize my achievements, and Mom would always prioritize his accomplishments over mine. But I also left with determination. If $50,000 was beginner's luck, I would show them what real success looked like. I would build something so large and impressive that even Derek's condescension would sound foolish. I met Jessica Chen at a small business networking event in January. She was 29, a marketing consultant who had started her own firm after being passed over for promotion at a large agency. We connected immediately over shared experiences of family skepticism and the challenges of entrepreneurship. "My parents still ask when I'm going to get a real job," she told me over coffee after our first meeting. "They cannot understand why I would leave a stable position to start something uncertain." Jessica became my first real friend who understood what I was trying to build. She offered marketing advice for Williams Tech Solutions and introduced me to other entrepreneurs who were fighting similar battles. For the first time since my father's death, I had a support system of people who believed in my potential. "Your family will come around eventually," Jessica said optimistically. "Success has a way of changing people's perspectives." I wanted to believe her, but I was beginning to suspect that my family's rejection was not really about my level of success. It was about something deeper and more painful that no amount of achievement would heal. Still, I was committed to the path I had chosen. I would keep building, keep growing, and keep proving that their initial assessment of my worth was completely wrong. By 2015, Williams Tech Solutions had outgrown my apartment. I leased a small office space in downtown Springfield and hired my first employee, Rachel Morrison, a recent computer science graduate who shared my passion for elegant software design. "This place has good energy," Rachel said on her first day looking around our modest three-room office. "I can feel the ambition." The restaurant management software had evolved into a comprehensive platform that could serve multiple industries. Word spread through business networks, and I began receiving calls from companies across the Midwest. A car dealership wanted inventory management software. A medical clinic needed patient scheduling systems. A construction company required project management tools. Each project taught me something new about business operations and software development. I was not just writing code anymore. I was solving complex operational problems that directly impacted my clients' profitability. The work was challenging, intellectually stimulating, and financially rewarding. By late 2015, Williams Tech Solutions employed 5 people and generated over $2 million in annual revenue. We had moved to a larger office space and earned recognition as Rising Star Technology Company from the Springfield Business Journal. The award ceremony was held at the downtown Marriott, attended by the city's most successful business leaders. As I accepted the Crystal Trophy, I felt a surge of pride that my father would have shared. Tom Williams had always dreamed of building something meaningful, and I was fulfilling that dream through technology instead of construction supplies. Jessica attended the ceremony as my guest, cheering loudly when my name was announced. "Your parents must be so proud," she said during the reception. I had not told my family about the award. Experience had taught me that sharing good news only led to disappointment when they failed to care. Derek's wedding was scheduled for June 2016. Despite our strained relationship, I was invited and attended with a generous gift, a check for $5,000 to help with honeymoon expenses. The reception was held at Springfield Country Club, an elegant venue that Derek had chosen to impress his new in-laws. I arrived alone, watching my brother dance with Sarah, while family members congratulated them on their bright future together. Uncle Paul, my father's younger brother, approached me during dinner. "How's your computer business going? Brian, Derek mentioned you're doing some interesting work." I was surprised Derek had mentioned my work at all. "It's going well. We're growing pretty quickly and working with some great clients." "That's wonderful. Your father would be proud." Uncle Paul's sincere enthusiasm contrasted sharply with my immediate family's indifference. Later that evening, I overheard Derek talking to a group of relatives near the bar. "Brian's still playing around with his little computer hobby. I keep telling him he should consider getting a real job with benefits and security, but you know how stubborn he can be. Some people never grow out of their childhood fantasies." The casual dismissal hit harder than his direct insults. Derek was not just minimizing my success. He was actively rewriting reality to maintain his position as the family's only legitimate success story. Sarah approached me as I was preparing to leave. "Thank you so much for the generous gift, Brian. That was really thoughtful." "You're welcome. I hope you two have a wonderful honeymoon. Derek told me about your business. It sounds like you're doing really well." Her tone suggested genuine interest, unlike the polite indifference I usually encountered. "Thanks. It's been exciting to build something from nothing." Sarah glanced around to make sure Derek was not listening, then leaned closer. "Can I ask you something? Derek seems to think your business is not very successful, but that gift suggests otherwise. What's really going on?" The question caught me off guard. No family member had ever directly acknowledged the contradiction between Derek's dismissive comments and the evidence of my actual success. "Derek tends to measure success by traditional corporate standards," I said carefully. "Entrepreneurship does not fit his worldview." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "He's very focused on status and appearances. Sometimes I wonder if he really understands what other people are accomplishing." That conversation planted a seed of doubt about Derek's version of events. If his own wife questioned his assessment of my work, maybe his dismissive attitude said more about his insecurities than my actual failures. The real shock came 2 weeks after the wedding. Rachel forwarded me an email she had received from Marcus Thompson. "Brian, you should see this. It's pretty upsetting." The email was a query Marcus had sent to Derek's insurance company about business liability coverage for restaurant owners. Derek had responded personally expressing concerns about Marcus's questionable choice to work with unproven technology vendors and suggesting that custom software posed significant security and reliability risks. Derek was actively sabotaging my business relationships. I felt sick reading his carefully worded warnings about Williams Tech Solutions. He had positioned himself as a concerned insurance professional looking out for Marcus's best interests, but the real goal was clear: undermine my credibility and damage my reputation. I called Marcus immediately. "Did you receive some concerning information about my company from Midwest Insurance?" "Yeah, that was weird. Some adjuster called Derek Williams suggested your software might not be reliable. I figured he was just trying to sell me additional coverage, so I ignored it." "Why?" "Derek Williams is my brother." The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. "Your own brother is trying to sabotage your business." "Apparently so." "That's sick, man. For what it's worth, your software has been flawless for 3 years. I've recommended you to a dozen other restaurant owners, and they've all been thrilled with the results." Marcus's loyalty was reassuring, but Derek's sabotage explained several lost contracts over the past year. Potential clients who had seemed enthusiastic during initial meetings would suddenly become cold and distant, offering vague excuses about concerns that had come to light or recommendations to reconsider. I spent the weekend investigating Derek's interference. Through business contacts and social media research, I discovered he had reached out to at least 6 potential clients, positioning himself as a concerned insurance professional, warning them about the risks of working with unestablished technology vendors. The betrayal was devastating. I had expected my family's indifference, even their active dismissal of my achievements. But Derek was not just passively unsupportive. He was actively working to destroy what I had built. I confronted him by phone on Monday morning. "We need to talk about your calls to my potential clients." Derek's response was immediate laughter. "Oh, that! Someone needs to keep you humble, little brother. You're getting too big for your britches with this computer stuff. You're sabotaging my business. Those are real contracts with real money that you're costing me. I'm protecting people from making bad decisions. You're not ready for the kind of responsibility that comes with major business contracts. Maybe if you had worked in the real world for a few years, you'd understand how business actually works." The conversation ended with Derek hanging up on me. I sat in my office, staring out the window at downtown Springfield, trying to process what my brother had just admitted. He was not protecting potential clients from my inexperience. He was protecting his own ego from my success. That night, I made a decision that would define the next phase of my life. I was done trying to prove myself to people who were actively working against me. Derek and Mom could believe whatever they wanted about my capabilities and achievements. I would focus entirely on building something so successful that their opinions became completely irrelevant. Rachel found me working late that evening, developing plans for a revolutionary new product that would transform Williams Tech Solutions from a regional consulting firm into a national software company. "You seem different tonight," she observed. "More focused, but also angrier." "I'm done playing small," I told her. "We're going to build something that changes everything." The next morning, I placed a call to Alex Rodriguez, a brilliant marketing strategist I had met at a technology conference. "I have a proposition for you. How would you like to help me build the future of business automation software?" Alex's enthusiasm was immediate. "I've been waiting for the right opportunity. When do we start?" Derek thought he was protecting his position as the family's only success story by undermining my small regional business. He had no idea that his sabotage had just motivated me to think much, much bigger. The real game was about to begin. I went completely no contact with my family in September 2016. No phone calls, no visits, no responses to the occasional text message. Derek had shown me that maintaining any connection only gave him opportunities to interfere with my business, and I was done providing him with that ammunition. Alex Rodriguez joined Williams Tech Solutions as co-founder and marketing director, bringing a vision that perfectly complemented my technical capabilities. Where I saw software solutions, Alex saw market transformation opportunities. "Every business in America is drowning in inefficiency," Alex explained during one of our late-night strategy sessions. "They're using 10 different software programs that don't talk to each other, managed by employees who spend half their time on administrative tasks instead of productive work. We can change that." The concept was ambitious, a comprehensive artificial intelligence-powered business management platform that could integrate every aspect of company operations. Accounting inventory, customer relations, human resources, project management, and analytics, all seamlessly connected through intuitive interfaces and intelligent automation. We called it TechFlow. Developing TechFlow required 18 months of intensive work and a team of 15 brilliant programmers, designers, and systems architects. I invested every dollar Williams Tech Solutions earned back into research and development, living modestly while building something revolutionary. The breakthrough came in March 2018 when we completed the first fully functional TechFlow prototype. The system could analyze a business's operational data, identify inefficiencies, recommend improvements, and implement solutions automatically. It was like having a team of expert consultants working 24 hours a day to optimize every aspect of business performance. Our first major client was Davidson, manufacturing a mid-sized company that produced automotive parts for 3 major car manufacturers. Their operations were chaotic: inventory shortages, production delays, customer complaints, and profit margins shrinking year over year. TechFlow diagnosed their problems within a week and proposed solutions that would save them over $2 million annually. CEO David Davidson was skeptical until we demonstrated the system's capabilities with a limited trial run. "This is incredible," David said after reviewing the results. "You've identified issues we didn't even know existed and provided solutions that actually work. How much would it cost to implement this company-wide?" The contract was worth $12 million over 3 years. More importantly, David became our biggest advocate, introducing TechFlow to other manufacturing executives and vouching for our capabilities. Word spread quickly through business networks. By the end of 2018, TechFlow had contracts with 47 companies across 12 states, generating over $50 million in annual revenue. Williams Tech Solutions had become a major player in the business automation industry. Meanwhile, Derek was telling anyone who would listen that my business had finally collapsed, and I was probably too embarrassed to admit failure. Mom supported this narrative, telling extended family that I was struggling to find direction. And, too proud to ask for help when I clearly needed it. The irony was delicious. While my family spread stories about my supposed failure, TechFlow was featured on the covers of Business Week Entrepreneur magazine and Technology Today. I was invited to speak at industry conferences and quoted in major newspapers as an expert on artificial intelligence and business optimization. Uncle Paul called in late 2018, having seen one of the magazine articles. "Brian, I just read about TechFlow in Business Week. This is incredible. Why didn't anyone in the family know about your success?" I explained my decision to distance myself from family drama while focusing on building the company. Uncle Paul was understanding, but concerned about the family rift. "Your mother misses you even if she won't admit it. And Derek has been having some troubles at work lately. Maybe this would be a good time to reconnect." I appreciated Uncle Paul's intentions, but I was not ready to subject myself to Derek's jealousy and sabotage attempts. TechFlow required complete focus, and family drama was a luxury I could not afford. Dr. Williams, the therapist I had started seeing to process the family trauma, helped me understand that my decision was healthy self-preservation rather than vindictive punishment. "You've created boundaries to protect your emotional well-being and professional goals," she explained. "That's not cruel. It's necessary. You can reconsider those boundaries when and if your family demonstrates genuine change." TechFlow continued growing at an unprecedented rate. By mid-2019, we employed over 100 people across offices in Springfield, Chicago, and Atlanta. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies, and our annual revenue exceeded $80 million. My personal net worth had grown to over $20 million, not that anyone in my family knew or cared. According to Derek's version of reality, I was a failed entrepreneur who had disappeared from family gatherings due to shame and embarrassment. Lisa Chen joined TechFlow as my executive assistant in early 2020, bringing organizational skills and emotional intelligence that helped manage my increasingly complex life. She was 31, brilliant, and completely unimpressed by wealth or status. "You work too much," Lisa observed after her first week. "When was the last time you took a real vacation?" "Vacations are for people who don't love what they do," I replied automatically. "That's what every workaholic says right before they burn out. You've built something amazing, but you're losing yourself in the process." Lisa was right as usual. Success had consumed my life so completely that I barely existed outside of TechFlow. I had achieved financial independence and professional recognition, but I was emotionally isolated and spiritually empty. Dr. Williams recommended that I develop interests and relationships outside of work. "Success without connection is just expensive loneliness," she said during one of our sessions. I started taking photography classes, joined a hiking club, and began dating occasionally. The activities felt strange at first, like I was pretending to be someone who had time for hobbies and relationships. But gradually, I remembered what it felt like to be a complete person, rather than just a successful entrepreneur. The acquisition offers started arriving in late 2020. Venture capital firms, technology giants, and private equity groups all wanted to buy TechFlow. The initial offers were impressive: $50 million, $60 million, $80 million. I turned them all down. TechFlow was not just a business to me. It was proof that I could build something meaningful, despite my family's rejection. Selling felt like giving up on a larger mission. But Robert Chen from Global Tech Corporation made an offer that changed my perspective. "We're not interested in buying TechFlow to strip it for parts or absorb it into our existing products," he explained during our first meeting. "We want to invest in your vision and help you scale it globally. You would maintain creative control while gaining access to resources that could make TechFlow the worldwide standard for business automation." Global Tech's offer was $120 million plus equity stakes that could be worth hundreds of millions more if TechFlow achieved certain growth targets. More importantly, they genuinely understood what we had built and wanted to amplify its impact. I spent 6 months considering the offer, consulting with advisors, and evaluating Global Tech's track record with acquired companies. The research was encouraging. They had a history of supporting founders' visions rather than undermining them. Alex strongly supported the acquisition. This is our chance to change business operations globally instead of just regionally. We've proven the concept works. Now, let's prove it can scale. In November 2023, I made the decision to accept Global Tech's revised offer of $160 million. The number was significant, not because of its size, but because of what it represented: complete vindication of every choice I had made since my father's death. I was 32 years old, worth more money than I could spend in several lifetimes, and finally ready to face the family that had written me off as a failure 15 years earlier. Lisa suggested I attend Christmas dinner as a final test of my emotional growth. "You don't need their validation anymore," she pointed out. "You've proven everything you set out to prove. Maybe it's time to offer them a chance to be part of your life again." I was not sure forgiveness was possible, but I was curious to see how they would react to the truth about what I had accomplished. More importantly, I wanted to test whether their rejection still had the power to hurt me. If I was truly free from their judgment, then facing them should feel like visiting strangers, rather than confronting the people whose approval I had desperately sought for decades. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before Christmas, a generic family holiday card with a handwritten note from Mom. "We would love to see you this year, if you're available." I RSVP'd yes, and began preparing for the most important family dinner of my life. The Global Tech acquisition closed on November 15, 2023. I sat in a conference room on the 40th floor of their Chicago headquarters, signing documents that would transfer ownership of everything I had built over the past 8 years. Patricia Williams, Global Tech's CEO, personally oversaw the final signing ceremony. "Brian, I want you to know this is the largest acquisition in our company's history. We don't take that responsibility lightly." The check for $160 million was transferred electronically, appearing in my account as a number so large it seemed abstract. I had expected to feel triumphant, but the moment was surprisingly hollow. I had no family to call with the news, no loved ones to celebrate with, except for my business colleagues. Alex organized a celebration dinner at the city's most exclusive restaurant. The entire TechFlow team attended, toasting our success and discussing the exciting future ahead. Everyone was genuinely happy for me, but I felt disconnected from their joy. "You look like someone who just lost his best friend instead of someone who just became incredibly wealthy," Lisa observed as we shared a taxi back to the hotel. I guess I thought achieving this goal would feel different, more satisfying somehow. Maybe because the goal was never really about money. You wanted to prove something to people who wouldn't recognize your worth anyway. Now that you've proven it beyond any doubt, you're realizing their opinion was never the real prize. Lisa was right as always. The acquisition was validation, but validation from the wrong audience. The people whose respect I truly valued had supported me throughout the journey. The people whose approval I had desperately sought were never going to be impressed, no matter what I achieved. Alex suggested I use my newfound freedom to reconnect with family. "You've got enough money to be generous, and enough success to be confident. Maybe it's time to extend an olive branch." The idea terrified me more than any business challenge I had faced. Entrepreneurship involved calculated risks and strategic decisions. Family reconciliation involved emotions, history, and the possibility of reopening old wounds. But I was also curious. What had happened to Derek and Mom during the 8 years I had been building TechFlow? How had their lives evolved while I was transforming from a struggling entrepreneur into a successful business owner? I hired Kevin Martinez, a private investigator, to research my family's current situation. The report he delivered was eye-opening and somewhat sad. Derek's career had stagnated significantly. He was still working at Midwest Insurance, but had been passed over for promotion 3 times in the past 5 years. His marriage to Sarah was troubled. They had separated twice and were currently in couples counseling. Financially, they were struggling with mortgage payments on a house they had purchased during better times. Mom's situation was even more concerning. The house I grew up in needed major repairs that she could not afford. The roof was leaking, the heating system was failing, and the foundation had developed cracks that required immediate attention. She had been borrowing money from Derek, which explained part of his financial stress. Most surprisingly, Derek had been telling people at work that his successful younger brother was helping support the family financially. Colleagues assumed I was a doctor or lawyer based on Derek's vague descriptions of my professional success. The narrative had completely reversed. Instead of the failed entrepreneur who had disappeared in shame, I was now the mysterious successful brother who preferred privacy. Derek was taking credit for my achievements without actually knowing what those achievements were. The research also revealed something that made my chest tighten with emotion. Michael Rodriguez, the estate attorney who had handled my father's affairs, contacted me through business channels with information he felt I needed to know. Brian, I've been trying to reach you for years about your father's estate. There were some assets that your mother chose not to disclose at the time, but legally, they belong to you. The hidden assets were substantial, a trust fund worth $200,000 that my father had established specifically for my education and future business endeavors. Mom had been aware of the trust since Dad's death, but had never mentioned its existence. Why didn't she tell me about this? I asked Michael during our meeting. I assumed she had. The trust was clearly designated for your benefit with instructions that it should be used to support your educational and entrepreneurial goals. Your father was very specific about wanting to help you build something meaningful. Reading Dad's handwritten instructions brought tears to my eyes. He had believed in my potential before I even knew what that potential was. The money would have transformed my early entrepreneurial struggles, eliminating the financial stress that had made every business decision feel desperate. Mom had stolen more than money from me. She had stolen my father's final gift, his last expression of faith in my future. The betrayal was profound, but it also provided clarity about what Christmas dinner would really represent. This was not about forgiving past mistakes or rebuilding damaged relationships. This was about confronting 15 years of deliberate deception and choosing how to move forward. I spent the week before Christmas preparing for the encounter. Dr. Williams helped me process my anger about the hidden trust fund and develop realistic expectations for the family reunion. What do you hope to accomplish by attending this dinner? She asked during our session. I want to see how they react when they learn the truth about what I've built, and I want to decide whether these people deserve a place in my future. Those are reasonable goals. Just remember that their reaction will tell you more about them than about you. Your worth isn't determined by their ability to recognize it. I bought thoughtful Christmas gifts, despite everything: a spa weekend package for Mom, golf lessons for Derek, and a beautiful bracelet for Sarah. If I was going to confront them, I wanted to take the high road and demonstrate the kind of person success had helped me become. Christmas Eve. I drove to Springfield for the first time in 7 years. The town looked smaller than I remembered, shabby in places where I recalled prosperity. My childhood neighborhood showed signs of economic decline: overgrown lawns, houses with peeling paint cars that had seen better days. Mom's house was particularly concerning. The gutters were falling off, several shingles were missing from the roof, and the front porch sagged noticeably. The house where I had grown up was slowly falling apart. I checked into a hotel rather than staying at Mom's house, wanting to maintain emotional distance and control over the situation. That evening, I reviewed my strategy one final time. I would be polite, generous, and completely honest about my achievements. I would give Derek every opportunity to react graciously to my success. I would offer Mom a chance to explain her deceptions and make amends. If they responded with genuine remorse and a desire to rebuild our relationships, I would be open to that possibility. If they responded with jealousy, denial, or continued disrespect, I would walk away permanently with a clear conscience. Either way, Christmas dinner 2023 would mark the end of one chapter of my life and the beginning of another. I fell asleep that night, thinking about my father and wondering what he would have thought about the man I had become. I hoped he would be proud, not just of my financial success, but of my resilience in the face of family rejection. Tomorrow would determine whether the family that had written me off as a failure was capable of accepting the successful man I had become. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood as I drove through familiar streets toward the house where I had grown up. The neighborhood looked even more run down in daylight, with several homes showing for sale signs and others clearly abandoned. Mom's house sat at the end of Elm Street, its white paint faded to an uneven gray, and the once pristine lawn now patchy and overgrown. The sight filled me with unexpected sadness. This place had been my father's pride, a symbol of his hard work and dreams for our family's future. I parked behind Derek's aging SUV and noticed Sarah's car was absent. According to my research, they were having marital problems, but I had assumed they would attend Christmas dinner together. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the gift bag from my passenger seat and walked up the cracked concrete steps to the front door. Before I could knock, the door opened. Brian. Mom's voice was carefully neutral, as if my name was unfamiliar in her mouth. She looked older than her 68 years, with gray hair pulled back severely and deep lines around her eyes that spoke of worry rather than laughter. "Hi, Mom. Merry Christmas." We stood there awkwardly for a moment, before she stepped aside to let me enter. The house smelled like roast turkey and old furniture exactly as I remembered, but everything seemed smaller and more worn. Derek appeared from the kitchen carrying a beer and wearing a forced smile. At 42, he had gained weight around his middle and lost most of his hair. His complexion was ruddy in a way that suggested too much alcohol and too much stress. Well, look who decided to show up." His tone was jovial, but carried an undercurrent of tension. "We were starting to think you'd forgotten where you came from." "Hard to forget this place," I replied evenly. "Where's Sarah?" Derek's smile faltered slightly. "She's spending Christmas with her family this year. We thought it would be good to have some space." The admission sounded rehearsed, like he had been practicing that explanation. Mom led us into the living room, where a small artificial tree sat in the corner, decorated with the same ornaments from my childhood. The furniture was the same as well, though the couch had developed new stains, and the carpet showed years of wear. "You look successful," Mom observed, taking in my tailored clothes and expensive watch. "I hope things have been going well for you." The comment was loaded with assumptions and carefully neutral politeness. She was fishing for information while maintaining her emotional distance. "Things have been going very well, actually. Better than I ever imagined." Derek settled into his favorite recliner, the same spot he had claimed during high school. "That's great to hear, little brother. I always knew you'd figure something out eventually. Takes some people longer to find their direction." The condescension was immediate and familiar. Even after 7 years of silence, Derek instinctively positioned himself as the older, wiser brother who had always been more successful. We made small talk during dinner preparation, with Derek dominating the conversation about his work at the insurance company. He described his responsibilities in grandiose terms, making his middle management position sound like executive leadership. "Regional supervisors like me basically run the entire claims operation," he explained while carving the turkey. "Corporate trusts us to make million-dollar decisions every day. It's a big responsibility, but somebody has to do it." Mom nodded approvingly, hanging on his every word, just like she had when we were children. The dynamic had not changed at all. Derek was still the golden child whose every accomplishment deserved celebration. "What about you, Brian?" Mom asked politely. "Are you still doing computer work?" The question was phrased as if I was a hobbyist, rather than a professional, exactly the tone she had always used when forced to acknowledge my interests. "I am. I actually just sold my company." Derek paused mid-chew, then laughed dismissively. "Sold your company, that little consulting thing you were doing? Come on, Brian. You don't have to exaggerate for us. We're family. I'm not exaggerating. I sold TechFlow Solutions 3 weeks ago. TechFlow. Derek's tone was mocking. That sounds made up. What kind of company name is that? And who would buy a one-man operation anyway? I set down my fork and looked directly at my brother. Global Tech Corporation bought it. The acquisition was announced in several business publications. Derek's laughter became more forced. Global Tech. That's a huge company. They wouldn't waste time on some small consulting business. You're really going to sit here and lie to us? I'm telling you the truth. TechFlow employed over 100 people across 3 cities. We developed artificial intelligence-powered business automation software for Fortune 500 companies. The room fell silent. Mom was staring at me with a mixture of confusion and suspicion, as if I was speaking a foreign language. Derek's face had gone red, but he was still shaking his head dismissively. 100 employees. Fortune 500 companies. Derek's voice was rising. Come on, Brian. We all know you've been struggling since your little computer repair thing fell apart years ago. You don't have to make up stories to impress us. Derek, I'm not making anything up. TechFlow was featured on the cover of Business Week last year. You can look it up. Okay, fine. Derek pulled out his phone aggressively. Let's settle this right now. If your company is so successful, it should be easy to find information about it online. He typed rapidly, then stopped scrolling. His expression changed from smugness to confusion to something approaching shock. What does it say? Mom asked nervously. Derek read slowly from his phone screen. TechFlow Solutions acquired by Global Tech Corporation in landmark $160 million deal. Founder Brian Williams calls sale a validation of artificial intelligence's potential to transform business operations. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek stared at his phone as if the words might change. Mom looked pale and unsteady. 160 million. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. That's what I said. Derek's shock transformed rapidly into defensive anger. This has to be a mistake, or some kind of scam. There's no way you built a company worth that much money. I would have known. We would have heard about it. Why would you have heard about it? We haven't spoken in 7 years. Because success like that doesn't happen in secret. If you were really that successful, you would have been bragging about it. You would have rubbed our noses in it. The accusation revealed everything about Derek's character. He could not imagine achieving something without immediately using it to put others down, so he assumed everyone else was equally petty. I wasn't trying to prove anything to you, Derek. I was building something for myself. Mom finally found her voice. Brian, if this is true, why didn't you tell us we're your family? The question was so absurd, I almost laughed. When would I have told you, Mom? During the 15 years you barely spoke to me. Or maybe during the 8 years you've been telling people I was a failure. We never said you were a failure, Mom protested weakly. Derek told Marcus Thompson that working with me posed significant security risks. He contacted 6 of my potential clients to warn them against hiring my company. You told neighbors I was struggling to find direction and too proud to ask for help. Should I continue? Derek's face went white. How do you know about that? Because I'm successful enough to have resources you can't imagine. I know exactly what you've been doing for the past 7 years. The confrontation was escalating exactly as I had expected, but I felt strangely calm. These people had lost the power to hurt me. Their denials and justifications were pathetic rather than painful. Derek stood up abruptly, pacing toward the window. This is insane. You show up here after years of silence and expect us to believe you're some kind of millionaire, and then you accuse us of sabotaging you. We're the ones who tried to keep you grounded and realistic. Grounded and realistic, Derek. You actively interfered with my business relationships. That's not helpful criticism. That's sabotage. I was protecting people from making bad investments. You were not ready for those kinds of contracts. Not ready, according to who? You a middle manager at a regional insurance company. The insult hit Derek like a physical blow. His entire identity was built around being more successful than his younger brother, and that foundation had just crumbled completely. Mom tried to intervene. Stop fighting. This is Christmas. We should be celebrating being together again. Together again. I turned to face her directly. Mom, you hid Dad's trust fund from me for 15 years. $200,000 that was specifically designated to help me start my business. You stole that from me and let me struggle when I could have had his support. Mom's face went completely white. How did you find out about that? Dad's estate attorney contacted me. He assumed you had told me years ago. I pulled out a copy of the trust documents. Here's Dad's handwritten note explaining that he wanted the money used to help me build something meaningful. You read this, then decided to hide it from me. Why? Mom's hands were shaking as she looked at the documents. I was angry and hurt. Your father died because of your programming club meeting. I thought if you had been more responsible, more normal, he would still be alive. The admission hung in the air like poison. After 15 years, she had finally said out loud what I had always suspected. She blamed me for Dad's death. So you punished me by stealing his final gift to me. And you've spent 15 years treating me like I was worthless, hoping I would fail, and prove your judgment was right. That's not what I wanted, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. Derek slumped back into his chair, holding his head in his hands. $160 million, he muttered. How is that even possible? I looked at both of them, these people who had shaped my early life with their rejection and cruelty, and felt nothing but pity. They were small, bitter people who had chosen to tear others down rather than build themselves up. I'm leaving now, I said, standing up and collecting my coat. I wanted to give you both a chance to be part of my success, but you've shown me exactly who you are. Wait, Mom called out desperately. Brian, please don't leave like this. We can work this out. We're family. I turned back to look at her. Family supports each other. Family celebrates each other's achievements. Family doesn't sabotage each other's dreams, or steal inheritance money, or spread lies about each other's failures. You're not my family. You're just people I used to live with who happen to share my DNA. Derek looked up with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, Brian. I was jealous and stupid, and I screwed everything up. Please don't leave angry. His apology was too little, and 15 years too late. Derek, you're not sorry that you hurt me. You're sorry that you can't take credit for my success. If I had actually failed like you wanted, you'd still be telling people how much smarter you were. I walked toward the door, then stopped and pulled out 2 envelopes from my coat pocket. These are your Christmas gifts. Mom, there's a check that will cover all the repairs this house needs. Derek, there's information about a scholarship fund I'm establishing in Dad's name. If you ever decide to become the kind of people who deserve to be in my life, these gifts might help you get started. I left the envelopes on the coffee table and walked out of the house where I had grown up. Behind me, I could hear Mom crying and Derek calling my name, but I did not turn back. The confrontation was over, and I was finally free from the people who had never deserved my love in the first place. I drove directly from Mom's house to Uncle Paul's home across town, where my father's brother and his family were celebrating Christmas with genuine warmth and affection. The contrast was immediate and striking: laughter instead of tension, curiosity instead of judgment, celebration instead of competition. Brian. Cousin Emma ran to hug me as soon as I walked through the door. At 28, she was a social worker who had always been the kindest member of our extended family. We saw the article about your company in Business Week. Dad has been showing it to everyone he meets. We're so proud of you. Uncle Paul embraced me with tears in his eyes. Your father would be bursting with pride right now. I wish he could see what you've accomplished. For the first time all day, I felt genuinely welcomed and appreciated. These people understood that my success was worth celebrating, rather than minimizing or questioning. "How did things go with your mother and Derek?" Uncle Paul asked quietly, while we prepared coffee in his kitchen. I described the confrontation honestly, including Derek's years of sabotage and Mom's hidden deception about the trust fund. Uncle Paul listened with growing sadness and anger. "I'm ashamed of how they treated you," he said finally. "Your father loved you boys equally, but he worried that Derek was too focused on appearances and competition. He hoped you would both find your own paths to success and happiness." Dad got his wish at least partially. I found my path even without their support. Have you considered what happens next? Your mother and Derek are still family, regardless of their mistakes. The question haunted me through the holiday season. Dr. Williams helped me process the confrontation during our next session, focusing on the choice between revenge and resolution. "You have all the power now," she observed. "You can choose to punish them indefinitely, or you can choose to offer them an opportunity for redemption. Neither choice is morally superior. They're just different paths forward." I spent January considering my options. Derek had called 17 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails, apologizing for his behavior and begging for a chance to make amends. Mom had written a 10-page letter, acknowledging her mistakes and explaining the grief and anger that had driven her to treat me so badly. The letter was painful to read, but helped me understand her mindset during those terrible years after Dad's death. She had been drowning in grief and looking for someone to blame. I was convenient target, the son whose activities had put Dad on the road that night. "I know my behavior was inexcusable," she wrote. "I stole 15 years of relationship with you because I was too hurt and angry to see clearly. You deserved love and support, especially after losing your father too. Instead, I gave you blame and coldness. I understand if you never forgive me, but I need you to know that I see my mistakes clearly now." Derek's apologies were less eloquent, but seemed equally sincere. He had lost his job at the insurance company after suffering what his supervisor described as a complete emotional breakdown following Christmas dinner. Sarah had filed for divorce, citing his years of emotional instability and financial irresponsibility. "I built my whole identity around being better than you," he admitted during one voicemail. "When that turned out to be completely false, I didn't know who I was anymore. I need help, Brian, professional help, and I need to make things right with you before I can make things right with anyone else." Alex Rodriguez offered practical advice during one of our business meetings. "Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. Do you want to carry anger and resentment for the rest of your life? Or do you want to model the kind of person your success has enabled you to become?" Lisa Chen was more direct. "You have enough money to be generous and enough security to take emotional risks. The question is whether they're capable of genuine change, or whether you'd just be setting yourself up for more disappointment." In February, I made several decisions that would define how I moved forward. First, I anonymously paid off Mom's mortgage and covered all the necessary repairs to the house. She never needed to know the money came from me, but she would no longer face the stress of potential foreclosure. Second, I established the Thomas Williams Memorial Scholarship Fund with an endowment of $5 million. The scholarship would provide full college tuition for students from working-class families who demonstrated entrepreneurial potential. Derek would manage the fund's operations if he could prove he was committed to genuine personal change. Third, I agreed to pay for Derek's therapy and rehabilitation costs on the condition that he spend at least 1 year in intensive counseling before we had any direct contact. His behavior had been toxic for so long that surface apologies were not sufficient. He needed to understand and address the psychological roots of his jealousy and sabotage. Mom's progress was slower but more encouraging. She joined a grief counseling group and began addressing the anger and blame she had carried for 15 years. Dr. Williams agreed to facilitate family therapy sessions when and if I decided I was ready for direct reconciliation. Meanwhile, my personal life was flourishing in ways that had nothing to do with family approval. Lisa and I had begun dating seriously, building a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than the desperate need for validation that had characterized my younger years. "You're different now," Lisa observed during a weekend trip to California. "More confident, but also more at peace. Success suits you." It's not the success that changed me. It's finally accepting that I don't need anyone else's permission to be valuable. We were married in a small ceremony 14 months later. Alex was my best man. Rachel was Lisa's maid of honor, and Uncle Paul walked me down the aisle in place of the father I still missed deeply. To my surprise, Mom attended the wedding. She had spent the previous year in intensive therapy and had written me several thoughtful letters acknowledging her mistakes without asking for immediate forgiveness. She looked healthier and more at peace than I had seen her since before Dad's death. "I'm proud of the man you've become," she told me during the reception. "Your father would be proud too. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was always obvious to everyone else." Derek also attended, but only after completing 18 months of therapy and demonstrating genuine change through his management of the scholarship fund. He had helped 12 students receive full college funding and had developed efficient systems for evaluating applicants and monitoring their progress. "I was a terrible brother for most of your life," Derek said during his toast at the reception. "Brian succeeded despite my interference, not because of my support. I'm grateful he's giving me a chance to do better." The reconciliation was gradual and careful, built on changed behavior rather than emotional appeals. Derek never returned to his old pattern of competition and undermining. Mom never again dismissed my achievements or compared me unfavorably to others. More importantly, I had learned that family relationships must be earned through consistent respect and support, not assumed because of shared DNA. The people who celebrated my success were my real family, whether they were related by blood or by choice. Today, I run a venture capital firm focused on supporting entrepreneurial talent from underprivileged backgrounds. The Thomas Williams Memorial Fund has grown to provide scholarships for over 300 students annually. TechFlow continues operating under Global Tech's ownership, helping businesses worldwide optimize their operations. Derek manages the scholarship fund full-time and has rebuilt his life around service rather than competition. Mom volunteers at a grief counseling center, helping other parents process loss without transferring their pain to their children. We have family dinners several times a year now, but they're different from the hostile gatherings of my childhood. These meals are characterized by genuine interest in each other's lives, celebration of achievements, and support during challenges. Most importantly, I understand that success is not about proving your worth to people who refuse to see it. Success is about building something meaningful with people who appreciate your contributions and share your values. My father planted seeds of confidence and ambition that grew despite neglect and sabotage. The greatest honor I can give his memory is using my success to plant similar seeds in young people who need someone to believe in their potential. Some families are born, others are built. The strongest families are usually the ones we build ourselves with people who choose to support our growth rather than tear down our dreams. If you've been rejected by people whose approval you desperately wanted, remember that their inability to see your value says nothing about your worth. Keep building, keep growing, and keep surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your success rather than minimize it. The best revenge against those who doubt you is a life so fulfilling and successful that their opinion becomes completely irrelevant. Have you ever had to overcome family members who didn't believe in your dreams? What strategies helped you stay motivated when the people closest to you weren't supportive? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more inspiring stories about overcoming adversity, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by other people's ability to recognize it. Thank you for listening, and remember that your biggest success might come from proving wrong the people who know you best, but see you least clearly. Keep building your dreams, because the world needs what you have to offer, even if your family doesn't understand it yet.